How are you? I hope you're having a wonderful day. My name is Christine. For those of you that don't know me, I live in central Pennsylvania. Um, and I've lived here for, oh gosh, I think it's coming up on 5 years. I think it's coming up on 5 years that I've lived in Harrisburg, but I'm originally from New York. So I wanted to come on tonight because everybody has a story. You have a story, your neighbor has a story, the guy you dated when you were 15 got a story. Everyone's got a story. And stories come in chapters. So tonight I wanted to share with you a chapter in my life that I don't often talk about. For those of you who don't know me, like I said, I'm originally from New York and I now live in central Pennsylvania. I've got two children, the adultlings. Nick is going to be 30 and Alex is 27. And for more than half my life, I was married. Am I married now? No, I'm not. But right before the pandemic, I got divorced. And we were married for 30 years. Long time, right? So in the early summer of 2019, the husband and I decided that we were going to end our marriage of, at that point, nearly 30 years. And if you're not married, it's not, it's a process. It doesn't just instantly happen. You're divorced or whatever. It's a process. So we had decided in the beginning of the summer that we were going to end our marriage. But there were certain logistical things that needed to happen. And since we've been married for 30 years and there was no bad person in the reason for us ending our marriage. It has just run its course. There wasn't any urgency of somebody moving out, or there was no dirt, so to speak. So we had some time. So we were going through the process of adjusting to it ourselves. And my parents and my siblings knew, but our children did not, because we were still figuring it out. And if you have children, you don't just share stuff with kids. You wait till you figure it out. So we were figuring it out. In August of 2019, and there's a reason why I'm telling you this. In August of 2019, I went to Las Vegas. And I went there for my a Bling convention. And a decision had been made because enough pieces of the puzzle had come together that we knew that we were going to move ahead with the separation and the divorce. So we had decided that when I came back from going to Vegas for a week, at that point we would tell our children that our marriage was going to end. And we didn't want to tell them right before I left and then have me be away for a week. So I jetted off to this Bling convention, excited, but also at the same time bearing the weight of knowing that when I came back, I was going to have to tell the kids, who were adults but still, that things were going to be changing. So while I was in Vegas, now at the Bling convention, there's all these different events that happen. It's very exciting. And I don't remember what night it was, but it must have been after a concert, because there are concerts and things that happen. But the concerts, like, they start at like 6 or 7, so they're over by like 9. So it was like 9 o'clock and we're leaving the MGM Grand Convention area. And, everybody, thousands of people are pouring out. Vegas is a big place, so everyone's going different places. But my group of just a couple of people headed right across the concourse to this Mexican restaurant. And we went in there, and I think they closed at like 10 or 11 or something. Last seating was at 10 o'clock, something like that. Which sort of struck me as odd, because it's Vegas, for goodness sake. Shouldn't they be open like round the clock? I mean, I'm from New York, and that's a city that never sleeps. And isn't Vegas like that too? I mean, people can get married in the middle of the night, right? Am I wrong? I don't know. So anyway, a group of us, maybe about 6 of us, walked across to just like across the concourse to this Mexican place, which P.S. and by the way, I went back to Vegas this past summer. The Mexican place is no longer there. Now it's the Jonas Brothers Fathers Country something restaurant, which was very good, by the way, just saying. But I digress. So a small group of us walked over to have dinner together. And I was with my big sister. In the bling business, we have like mentor people. And my big sister was the only person outside of my siblings and my parents who knew that I was going to be getting divorced. And she was like, oh my gosh, Christine, 30 years. Is there any way that you can fix this? Like, I can't imagine you and Frank not being together. And I'm like, please don't put more on us. Like, this is really happening, and just please support me. And she was amazing. Throughout convention, she was holding my hand. And like, because it was hard being away from my family, in a city that I wasn't sure about, in different surroundings, knowing that when I got home, I was going to have to once you tell the kids, it made it another level of real. And it was just a lot. There was a lot going on. It was a very trying time. And I was a grown up, okay? I mean, like, I was like, 50 something years old, okay? So it wasn't like I was, anyway, I digress. So we're at this restaurant and we're trying to get a table. And usually when we get together after to eat, because it's like a big family reunion when we go to these conventions, because people from all over the country come that you haven't seen in forever, or you never met in person, and now you get to come together, and it's amazing. So we want to sit together. And the restaurant person is saying, well, we can give you a table of 4, and then, there'll be another table of 4 over here and another table of 4 over there. And because then people were saying, hey, people are texting, saying, where are you eating? We'll meet up with you, that kind of thing. Because people are still pouring out of the convention area, because it's the MGM Grand, for goodness sakes. And so we're like, all right, we're 6 now, but we're going to be 8, and we're going to, and they're like, well, we'll give you different tables. And Miss Marilyn kept saying, no, we need to be together. We need to be together. And can we move the tables together? And they're like, no, we can't pull the tables together. And I got this sense that, like, I was doing like a head count of people. So I say, listen, if I'm just going to go, and that way there's one less person you have to worry about, and then you'll be able to fit like at least the people that we have here right now, because they're like, is your entire party here? They're always asking that. And our entire party wasn't, but the people that were there, we had enough, like a big enough table that they could sit. But we had one too many. So I said, I'm going to go. I'm going to go back to my hotel room. Don't worry about me. And Miss Marilyn stopped what she was doing, and she goes, don't you move. Don't you move. And I went, okay. So she continues. Somebody else comes over, and she's like trying to talk to them about, hey, this is like, we'd like to sit together, and there's more people coming, and we could be as many as 12.5 people. And, and she's pointing over to the other side of the restaurant that had been darkened off. And she's like, can't you open up like the tables over there? Can't we like sit together? And one of the people that was in our small group, Brittany, lovely woman, at the time she was 25. So this is a couple years ago. She's standing there with me, and we're both sort of looking like, this is a lot. Like, Miss Marilyn's trying to make all this happen, and the restaurant people, are sort of like, nah, we're not really interested. And that was like the sense that we were getting was, yeah, no, you got to sit at individual tables, but that defeats the purpose, because then we're not together. We're just in the same restaurant, right? So that's not as much fun. So again, feeling really sheepish, because I'm like, I can do something to make this better. I again say, because Maverick, who is Miss Marilyn's son, at the time he must have been like 12, He's got to eat and it's getting later and, the places like they're going to do the last seating and everything. And so again, I said, don't worry about it. I'm not really that hungry. I'm just going to go. And Miss Marilyn again stops and she says, don't you move. Don't move. And at that, like she just gave me a look and she just, don't you move. It was one of those, like, I don't know how your mom was growing up, but if your mother gives you that like clenched teeth kind of thing, like, don't you move. Don't you do it. That's what I got from Miss Marilyn was, don't you move. And it was funny. Now I can laugh about it. At the time I was intimidated because I'm a 50-year-old person and I have this person saying, don't you move. And I look at Brittany and she looks at me and we're both like, okay. And Miss Marilyn keeps talking and the restaurant people and a nice waiter comes over and he says to the manager, I'll take them. Yeah. Open it up. I'll take them. It was like in a blip with this other waiter coming over, very nice man, came over and goes, yes, of course we can sit you, of course. He was like in a blip and Miss Marilyn just gave me a look like, In a moment, it changed. The whole dynamic changed. And we went from, there were people who were like, that we could see who were wanting to come and meet up with us, but they weren't sure if there was going to be enough room. Because you're in a restaurant, for goodness sake. So you see your friends, you want to go meet up with them, but you're like, is there room for me? Like, can I go sit with them? And so we were sort of like in this weird, really weird quasi space. And then all of a sudden, they brought up the lights on this other section. And there was a whole bank of tables that they quickly moved together. I think when all was said and done, there was about 18 people sitting around because once that switch happened and the waiter came over and said, yeah, I'll take them. And they immediately, people came in and moved those tables together. And really fast, we moved into the section and Brittany and I were across from each other. And then suddenly, like, the rest of the group found their way out from, it must have been a concert that night, found their way out from the concourse and came into the restaurant. And there was like, it must have been like 18 people. And it really was. And these were people that, and we sat and we had this meal and there was no rush. There was no like, now you're here and then you got to be out there in 15 minutes. No. The waiter took such good care of us, and trust and believe we took very good care of him too. But there were people that I have spoken to, but this is an opportunity like to sit at a table and break bread with them. I have to post a picture later because Brittany and I, we ordered like these taco things that like were huge. They were like as big as my head. It was like, and I got a big head. Like these amazing dishes came out from that we had ordered. And it was this wonderful experience that I almost missed. Because I was willing to bow out of something to make room for somebody else. I don't even know who the somebody else would have been. Because we went from a group of like 5 or 6 to 18. I would have heard about it the next day and been like, why did I leave? And Miss Marilyn said to me, as we sat across the table from each other, having this wonderful feast, and there was laughter and making new friends. It was like this amazing experience. She looked across me on the table and she says, I hope you learned from this. I hope you learned. You don't give up. And you don't bow out because you need to be at the table. And I sat there and she was right. And I have to tell you, in the last 3 years, I have thought about that moment on more than one occasion. Because we've come through, or we're coming through, a pandemic. And, 6 months later, the divorce came through. And so many times in the last 3 years, I have thought about that moment of how I had so self-trained myself to not even think about me. I was in such a place of sidestepping into the shadows so that somebody else could have a moment to shine. And while that might be a nice way to be, it's not a good way to live your life, because then you're not really living your life. You're sort of a prop in everybody else's life. And if you're a mom, I'm sure there's moments in your life when you felt like you're coordinating so everybody else can have a great life, and you're not thinking about yourself. And that's okay. When your kids are small, that naturally happens. We nurture, we love, we protect. But if we don't at some point remember our value, then we're not teaching our children that we have value. And so then they're bound to repeat that. And you want your children to grow into adults who are fully functioning. But in order for that to happen, you have to role model that. You have to teach that by living that. And I wasn't. And that's probably in some small part why I'm no longer married. Because it came far too easy for me to not even think twice about saying, I'll just go so that there's space for somebody else. And how blessed I am that Miss Marilyn has a lot going on. She's a busy lady. And on top of everything else that she was doing, she's taken more moments with me than, I'm not going to say than I deserve, because that's wrong thinking. But she's been very generous. And I am very, very blessed to have someone like that in my corner. And to be now that person in other people's corner. Because we need that. I was thinking about this a little while ago. And I was trying to equate, like, you see these movies, and the movies that came to my mind were like Officer and a Gentleman and The Karate Kid. Mr. Miyagi's telling him to, like, wash on, wash off, wash on, wash off. And, he's learning to, like, paint the fence. He's learning to do these practical things. And then when he needs these special skills, when he's in the Karate Kid, he's able to perform. And, the drill sergeant is like trying to break down Richard Gere. But he learns from this experience because, this drill sergeant turns out to be someone who's really in his corner. And then I got mad for a minute because I'm like, all right, we got Officer and a Gentleman, we got Karate Kid. What female movies do we have where somebody's in somebody's corner cheering, making it hard, like teaching them something hard, but they know that it's going to pay dividends for them? And all I could come up with was Mulan, a cartoon. And it sort of made me mad. Because I'm like, we need more women empowerment things, because that, for me, Miss Marilyn, on that night, she was my Mr. Miyagi. She was teaching me something like, just stay. We want you to be here for the meal with us. Trust me and stay. I see you and I want you to be here. And then, like I said, I've thought about that night so many times in the last 3 years, because I think it's a learned situation of saying, that's a boundary, and I'm going to say no to that. You've hurt my feelings, and I don't appreciate it. You can't act that way. You can't treat me that way. It's no longer all right. And you have to keep doing that. And you have to keep stepping up for yourself. And as women, or at least for me, as much as I do so many things in my 9-to-5 job, and my kids feel I'm so accomplished, it takes a lot of energy to put yourself out there and say, I'm uncomfortable with what you're doing, and either you need to stop what you're doing, or I'm going to change what I'm doing. I'm going to not be in this relationship, because we're so afraid of what people are going to think about us that it's easier to stay in the shadows and not cause waves, right? We don't want to cause waves. I didn't want to cause the waves that night. Miss Marilyn was asking for something and she wasn't getting it. So I was like, maybe if there's one less person she has to worry about, that'll be the tipping point. But I didn't have to give up my place at the table for us all to succeed. It's a restaurant, for goodness sakes. They were very, very happy to have us. It just took a minute to figure out the logistics. And if I had tucked my tail and run out of the restaurant, I would have missed that opportunity. And I had somebody in my corner going, it's going to be okay. Stick it out. We're going to do this together. And that gave me enough buoyancy to see it through. And I'm reminded of that over, and like I said, going through the pandemic and getting through the divorce, reminding myself that don't give up. There's going to be moments where you're tested, but stick with it, because you'll push through. It's not a matter of, and sometimes I used to do this to myself, well, if it's hard, it's not meant to be. If it's hard, it's not, that's a sign it's not meant to be. No, that's a teachable moment. That's a teachable moment. And what you learn when you go through that moment is, okay, it didn't break me, and I didn't break the situation, and I have value. And so you don't give up. If there's something that you want, you need to step up and step into the light. And don't be afraid that you're not worthy, or that somebody's better than you or more worthy than you. No. This is your life. And as Miss Marilyn is constantly saying, this is not a dress rehearsal, ladies. This is not a dress rehearsal. And so I come to you tonight because I wanted to share that with you, because that's part of my story, a chapter in my book. And you might have a similar story, or maybe you're going through something right now where you're thinking, this feels really hard. It's just easy to curl up on the couch, and don't. Because you don't know when that push through moment is going to get you to where you need to be. And when you push through that moment, there will be a banquet. And you will make a memory. And you will have a story to share with somebody else, to remind them that if you can do it, they can do it. This is like one of the greatest gifts is how we stood together that night. And as women, we made something fabulous happen. And I'm so incredibly proud to be part of that sisterhood. There were men at the dinner table too. I'm not going to there were some guys there. P.S. And by the way, they were mostly husbands, but Maverick, he's not a husband, he's a son. But I wanted to share that with you tonight. Because like I said, when I was going through, like, Rocky's another one, right? Dun 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 dun. He overcomes, right? Where is our female Rocky? You know where? Look in the mirror. That's where the female Rocky is. It's us. Okay? So, thank you for spending a couple of minutes with me. I will respond to all the comments. Thank you. If something that I've said resonated with you, yay. Share your story, because it's important for us to lift each other up. My name is Christine, and from Central Pennsylvania, have a wonderful night.